Welcome back to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. And the intro theme that you heard is Mark of the Doomslayer by Karl Casey at White Bat Audio. And today is kind of an open lines day. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this because it's going to kind of evolve as we go through, but we'll talk about various sundry topics as driven by the audience. We'll first start with chat and the comments, and we can answer. I can ask, or you can ask me questions, and then if you are a regular, I might do something that I haven't done before, which I'll ask you to send me an email. And if you are a regular, just identify who you are. And I will maybe bring you up. But I got to be careful with that because for obvious YouTube reasons, I could be banned. So I guess the best way to do this is to supply... I should have had this set up beforehand, but let's see. All right, I'm going to put the email. Oh, brother, this is dangerous stuff, dangerous business. All right, so let's just create a little banner. Maybe not. Let's bear with me here as I'm trying to. All right. If you think you want to dip your toe in, email me at throughaglassdarkly@gmail.com. Identify what your tag is, and maybe we'll have you on to ask a question. I'm not sure if I should be doing this, but let me do this in a little bit more of an efficient way where you can still see my name, and you can see it right down here. Okay, so that'll just be up the entire time. While we're doing this, though, driving down 95, looking for your cutie pie. Okay. All right. Before we do that, though, a few things. Today is the autumnal equinox if you are in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, your vernal equinox has just passed. So, okay, a topic. The New Disclosure Buzz says the powers that be want it known that they have studied and identified a brain parasite that they term ultra-dimensional force. I have not heard that, but I'd be interested in hearing more. But before we get into any of that, okay, so what is the equinox? What does it mean? Why are we talking about it today? Well, the high level, the autumnal equinox, so it's occurring basically right now around September 22nd to 23rd, has rich symbolism and significance in various esoteric and occult traditions. Here are some key aspects. Balance and duality. That's one of the themes, okay? Equal night and day. The equinox represents a moment of balance as day and night are of equal length. This balance is often seen as a metaphor for the harmony between light and darkness, spirit and matter, conscious and unconscious realms. It's also a symbol of transition. It marks a shift from the active, outward-focused energy of summer to the inward, introspective energy of autumn and winter. This transition is associated with personal transformation and the need to turn inward. Okay, another series of themes: harvest and reaping. Yes, I said reaping. So it's the harvest festival time. Traditionally, the autumn equinox is associated with harvest celebrations. In an occult sense, it symbolizes reaping the fruits of one's labor, both materially and spiritually. It's a time to reflect on the growth of the past year and to give thanks. Metaphorical harvest. On a deeper level, it represents harvesting knowledge, experiences, and spiritual insights gained throughout the year, preparing to store them during the colder, darker months. All right, third set of themes: death and rebirth. So, the first thing associated with that is descent into darkness, my friends. Occult traditions often see this period as the beginning of a descent into darkness. It's a time of death and rebirth where old patterns, habits, and beliefs may need to die for new growth to occur. This mirrors the natural world, where plants shed their leaves and life enters a period of dormancy. Mythological symbolism. In many myths, this time is linked with deities who descend into the underworld, such as Persephone in Greek mythology. The descent can be interpreted as a journey into the subconscious, a confrontation with inner shadows, or a period of spiritual generation. All right, fourth set of themes: alchemical and hermetic meaning. Okay, so alchemical processes. The equinox corresponds to the alchemical phase of coagulation, where disparate elements come together in a harmonious form. It's a synthesis of opposites, a time when the alchemist would metaphorically collect the results of their work. Hermetic teachings. In Hermeticism, the equinox can be seen as a symbol of the reconciliation of opposites and the attainment of equilibrium, reflecting the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. And then finally, last but not least, ritual and magic. Ritual significance. Many occult practitioners use the equinox as a time to perform rituals focused on balance, introspection, and gratitude. It's a powerful time for setting intentions for inner work, releasing what no longer serves, and preparing for the spiritual winter ahead. Magic of alignment. The energies during the equinox are believed to be particularly potent for rituals that aim to align one's inner and outer worlds, harmonize conflicting forces, or connect with both the divine and earthly realms. In essence, the autumnal equinox in the occult tradition is a time of balance, transformation, and preparation for the darker, introspective months ahead. It's a moment to honor both light and shadow, to harvest the wisdom of the past, and to prepare for the spiritual work of the winter seasons. Well, 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 my friends. It is an auspicious day. We are moving into my favorite part of the year, the part of the year where I was born, kind of the time of Samhain and my ancient ancestors on the Irish Isle. So great time to be alive, my friends. So let's see what everybody's thinking. I'm just going to go through on I-10 West. That's like, I don't even know where that is. It could be anywhere. Hey, Francis, good to see you, man. Okay, the brains have been conducted. Ganglia have been identified. Okay, brain scanning. Okay. Thank you very much, Jalea. It's always a pleasure. Hello, Michelle. Good to see you. John Smith. I mean, anybody who's had a UAP sighting would have potentially witnessed anti-gravity tech being used, but I don't. So there's a lot of people who've witnessed something. Now, whether or not it's propelled by anti-gravity tech, that's probably the leading, hypothesis for what's propels UAPs, but who knows? Interesting. Okay, just trying to catch up. Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't have a guest tonight, so which is actually odd. So Two things that are important to note. Do not talk about anything related to the pandemic, medicine, medical technology. I've only done one of these. It was episode 17, and you can find it on Twitter, but you cannot find it on YouTube because YouTube took it down and gave me a warning for medical misinformation. So just and apparently just the way the cookie crumbles, I do this kind of solo episode every 17 episodes, or at least that's how it's fallen, right? So that was radio episode, at least 17. This is radio episode 34, which for all the folks who are good at math is 2 times 17. So multiples of 17, a prime number. Also, the day I was born, just usual synchronicities, which is for me it's just normal. There's nothing to remark. Thought form parasite. Interesting. Yeah, I mean thought forms can be parasites, right? Maybe this entire this channel is a thought form, right? Started with me, and then the collective audience is helping to propel it into the universe. So, given that it's the equinox, I had an interest. I mean, it's not really. It could be as mundane as you make it, or it could be as mystical as you make it. But when I went outside, I called a friend today that I haven't spoken with in a very long time, and I was catching up. So, of course, when I went outside, a raven instantly showed up, and then shortly thereafter, a hawk showed up, and there was a raven and a hawk in the sky. Uh, just kind of my standard fare, but on the equinox, no less. So, uh, because they were giving me a show, I decided to, I'm going to share some of this stuff. So, here's the raven, or at least a good picture of the raven. It's got these kind of like silver wings. It's kind of interesting for whatever reason. And let me see if there's a way for me to, yeah, this is not the best program to show you. Okay, more raven, hawk, more hawk. I mean, look at that. These guys get pretty close, right? So, I didn't have to go anywhere. These folks fly over my house and fly over me. And then if you've never seen a hawk dive, you're about to. Oops. This is a hawk diving. So, welcome to my world and the world of animals, and welcome to the equinox. I thought folks would appreciate that, but I'm not sure what the symbolic meaning of any of that is, but crazy stuff. No, I have not. Does it talk a lot about that? Synchronicities, Stephen? Oh my lord. Yeah, that's a short story, Radix Malorum, that I wrote. It's a pretty dark story. Yeah, so I'm just gonna read this for folks on the radio. So it just says, "Laugh out loud. I was just re-listening to that one reading of Radix Malorum by Weird Fiction Fan 666 when I noticed you were alive." Oh, wow, you were That's interesting. Yeah, that's a pretty dark story. I don't know where it came from, but it is pretty darn creepy. I also have a version on my site that I'm reading, but read go to Weird Fiction Fan. I mean, technically, he's not supposed to do that. Like, you're actually supposed to pay an author for or get their send them a contract and get their rights, but, I'm not like a famous author or anything. I actually appreciated that he appreciated the story. So, give him some views. Give Weird Fiction Fans 666 some views because he's got this really creepy photo. And just he reads my story. So thank you, Julia. I am doing very well, Honorable Gray Owl, although I have not seen an owl yet today. I've seen the hummingbirds, which I see every day, and I've seen, my my hawk friends and my raven friends. And apparently, when my son showed up on his college campus, a raven flew directly to his feet and landed, welcoming him apparently. So yeah, there's something strange. I mean, maybe it's just random. It's probably just random, but there's some strange stuff. Interesting. All right, so Stephen is saying yes, it does, meaning it does cover synchronicities, and it's very readable. I know. Yeah, I seriously, I know he's an academic, but his style is not that of a typical academic. I recommend it. He draws from people whose names you would recognize. Yeah, that's the one problem of reading kind of some academic work is it's very pedantic, right? And that's itself that word pedantic is pedantic, hoity-toity sort of. And sometimes the writing can be unnecessarily dense, right? When there's no reason to be. So I hope they find me. Yeah, the owls will find you after the sun has set and the eve has arisen. Look, I would be out there. I would try to do the summoning thing. By the way, I tried it a second time and it worked again. It is creepy. Just when I was about to give up, an owl flew right over my head and then up the hill and then started diving and hunting on the hill like behind my house. So, and like the equinox, it's a perfect day for the owls to make an appearance. So we'll see. Maybe I'll hear them. I haven't heard them in a while. I hope to, at the very least. All right, I'm going to check my email now to see if anybody has tried reaching out. Troy, I don't. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure who you are though. That's the problem. It could be, hey, I'm your favorite fan. Like if I don't recognize you because you haven't said something or you haven't commented, I'm going to be a little bit. I'm sure it's totally fine, but I have to be super cautious, right? Like if Gray Al, like I don't know, I've never interacted with Gray Al in person, but he's been here so often. And oh, that's you. Do you want to come on for a second? Uh, I think I was reading something you sent actually. Let me stop sharing that. Just give me a second. All right, let me stand by. I'm crossing my fingers. Don't you have a potty mouth? And then we'll just do like a quick test, you know. Yeah, like ask a question. It'll be like a call in. Like these are open lines, sort of, kind of. Um, Again, I have to be super cautious. So, all right, stand by. I'm not even sure what to call you because you always have a dash. Um, all right, I'm sending you the StreamYard link. I think I just did. Yeah, I just sent it to you. All right. So, okay. And then Jalea, I definitely read what you sent this morning. I have to go back and find it and remind myself. Oh yeah, I actually watched some of that too. It was all about the polar shift and like all the legislation that they passed. And yeah, thank you for sending that. I appreciate that. I'm not well versed enough in it to kind of do a deep talk about it, but okay. So, yep. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to make note, um, and by the way, Dash, I guess we'll just call you Dash. You should use Chrome because if you use anything else, it'll be a problem. Yeah, I'd have to take a look at the mainframe description, but um, there we go. All right, Troy, you ready? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right, here we go. Here we go. Actually, let me be sure I have this configured right. All right, you are live. Looks like it's only 70 people though, so no pressure.
Hey, good to be on. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, where are you right now?
I am in Bellevue, Washington.
Okay. All right, so near Microsoft and well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right, so how do we want to do this? You're the first. You're the first person I've ever done this with. So
Hey, I guess we could just talk about anything. I don't know if you want to talk about any current stuff or
anything you want, as long as there's nothing about medical anything.
Sure. It seems like Lou Elizondo's kind of been the biggest thing in the news in the last week. It's pretty interesting seeing him go around all the podcasts. Very similar to what he did a few years ago when he first came out. He went to all the podcasts, almost like he was maybe doing a job, because that was pretty, you
Oh,
know,
100%.
you know,
This is 100% choreographed. I have no doubt in my mind. You don't get on CBS and like Fox News without having some official backing behind you. So, yeah, it's definitely a coordinated effort. I would say it's a modified limited hangout, which is what they call these things, right? So they're telling a little bit of the truth, but they're not telling the full truth. It's the narrative that the government wants you to, or a faction in the government wants you to hear, right? So there's some truth in it. There's probably some stuff that's not. I think I'm on like an email list with it's Sarfati's email list, and he was going nuts on some of the stuff that like he had the anti-gravity gravitational blue shift wrong. He had it like in the wrong direction and stuff like he was just ranting about that sort of stuff. So he also refers to power in hertz, which is not. It's got nothing to do with power, right? It should be in watts, probably terawatts or something. But I don't think it was intentional. I think they're just mistakes. So
exactly.
yeah, Jalea does not like Lou. Um, I'm kind of neutral, but
Me too. I'm neutral. I see him as like interesting bit of data, but whether or not it's truthful, to what extent it's truthful, it's really kind of impossible to know. You
and
know.
he might think it's truthful, and it could be something somebody just passed on some stuff that's not true, right? So it's actually more effective if you do it that way. But
Yeah. When you really try to research everything, there's definitely some suspicious stuff with the things he said, some of the inconsistencies. Calls himself an introvert, but meanwhile he's posting selfies at bars, drinking beers with people, you know. So it's like, you know,
I love like Jalea is just ruthless. You see this? You see this comment, Troy?
mm,
Jeff Morris seems like a nice guy. I don't, I he's got some. He's the one who does open lines, and he does some wild. He's got some. I don't know. I don't want to call people crazy because the craziest people might be the ones who are the most real, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, it's viewer call. So I think Francis is probably sitting on the fence for Lou Elizondo. But the guy's got to. So Julia's still talking about Jeff Mero. Yeah, but you know what? He's got over 100,000 subscribers, so he's doing whatever he's doing. He's doing it better than I am, right? I mean, I don't have. I kind of like what I kind of like that guy. There's other podcasters that not so. I won't say, but I can explain what my heuristic is.
Mm-hmm.
If they put in less apparent work than I do, they start later than I do, and they're growing much faster than I am, but are using other people's content to grow. Not a fan of that approach. Even though it apparently works better than my approach, it makes me a little bit not jealous. It just makes me angry. But
I mean, I've been following your show for a while. I follow a lot of the other shows. I've worked in security business for a long time, worked with law enforcement stuff for a while, and I'm pretty observant. And I'm pretty certain at some point you got on the naughty list. I don't know at what point, but it doesn't make sense. You have fantastic guests. You have a very engaging audience. I know I share your videos. Everyone else shares your videos. Meanwhile, you have, like you said, the other podcasts are somehow doing better. Not sure how, I mean, even podcasts that don't even provide that much content, they just do some live stuff, they're nice shows, but they don't deserve, for example, the new show Night Shift. I have no idea how they got more subscribers than you so quick,
I'm not even familiar with that channel, actually. Are they any? I honestly don't have an opinion, right?
Guy's a nice guy. I like some of his stuff, but how did he leapfrog you so quick? Makes no sense,
I mean, YouTube constantly shows me some trailer for a Bob Lazar movie, and it just says Night Shift, but I've never clicked on it. Well, I gotta. How long has the channel been around?
I'm not sure. I joined it just probably within the last 4 months. I mean, they did the whole, hey, we got 10,000 subscribers finally thing. I think they may be even up to like 12 or 13 now. I think they're up to 13.
After 4 months?
Yeah. It's been very fast. Same with Vetted. I don't know how that guy got so many. I mean,
I have a theory, but I'm not going to say that.
I won't comment about Vetted other than, the guy seems okay, but I don't know. Not that big of a fan.
Yeah, I'm not gonna comment.
He's
but,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, you heard about the whole. I'm not gonna gossip, but you heard about the whole dust up with the Jason Sands interview.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell it? Because I don't want to be associated with gossiping. But
which part of the Jason Sands thing?
I mean, I'll tell you because I wasn't any part of this, but there was stuff going on in the back end. So someone reached out to me on behalf of Jason Sands because I have an interview with him that apparently he signed an agreement with Jamie Foxx or James Foxx.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Where he can't appear in, you can't have video of him prior to appearing in the program, which is a documentary that James Foxx is putting out. So, when he asked me that, I said, well, yeah, I'll just try to get a bunch of interviews between you and that, and I'll just keep pushing it out until it comes out. So just did it quietly, no issues. But there was somebody else that aired it and didn't know about it. And I think that's what kind of triggered Jason Sands to, reach out to me, because he also reached out to me and I just missed what he had. And so this person aired a little bit of it and then immediately pulled it, had like 300 views. It's like a smaller channel. But someone else clipped like 9 minutes of it and got like 15,000 views and refused to take it down. And then there was a, you know, audience can figure out who did that. And then, of course, the person who only got 300 views for it and did the right thing, right, was obviously pretty pissed off, right? So he issued a copyright strike to this person, and suddenly took it down. It was all good, and they worked everything out. So you figure that one out.
Yeah, there's so much. The UFO world, ufology is so, it's like almost exponentially getting stranger, and with everything that's going on, to where we're all kind of experiencing this information fatigue, and this, because it's a very interesting topic, so we're all engaged. We all are hungry for more information, but then we kind of get this, inconsistencies, or sort of, weird drama that pops out, and then you have personal attacks and really strange stuff too. I mean, we won't get into that, but like on X, there's a lot of weird stuff, attacks on people, and it's just so bizarre. And
Well, there's a lot
meanwhile,
of bots. There's a lot of bots too, right? So, as an example, on Reddit, let's take a different platform. On Reddit, they had like a for each of the subreddits, they were just saying congratulations to this community for the most Reddit users on the UFO subreddit, and guess who had the most users on the UFO subreddit? Let's take a wild guess.
oh man, I can't.
I mean, I will tell you, it's not. You could be wrong.
I mean, I'm guessing like UFO subreddit. I mean, maybe Ashton Forbes or somebody. I'm not sure.
Eglin Air Force Base.
Wow.
Because they use bots. They like there's very likely a like a not psychological warfare, but like an information warfare unit there.
Mm-hmm.
And the U.S. military is not supposed to be operating on U.S. soil, so I'm sure some lawyer came up, and I mean, you work in security. They're probably like, well, cyberspace is not a physical entity, so therefore, we can target American citizens via cyberspace because that's not on American soil per se, right? Even though there's routers on American soil, their computers are on American soil, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what the intelligence community does to drive consensus. They'll use bots, and then you think that that's the consensus because they just flood the information space with a false narrative.
Have you seen that old interview with Jesse Ventura when he's governor of Minnesota, in a boardroom, talking about when he first became governor and when he met the CIA bureaucratic person who was posted in the Minnesota government, and he met him and had to introduce him to the new guy who was replacing him? And he asked him, like, hey, I thought you guys weren't, operating. And apparently there's a CIA plant in every state administration government. And then he also said, did you see that interview with Jesse?
No, but I believe you.
Yeah. And then he also said when he was first became governor, he was requested to come down to like the basement to talk to some feds. When he went down there, it was like 20 CIA agents in a half circle, and he was questioned. And before he started getting questions, he's like, who are, and it's Jesse Ventura, like, who are you guys? And some of them would say, some of them wouldn't. And, the big thing they had was, how did he get elected? That was what he thinks the whole thing was about, is how did this guy get elected? And then he even said, hey, your mission statement says you're not supposed to be operating within the U.S. What are you doing right now? And they wouldn't really answer. And so just based on like that alone, it's just, there's so much going on with.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. Like, how did he know they were CIA? Because they told him?
Well, there you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you know they're not SVR? Or, back then it would have been KGB maybe. Right? That's why you have to be super careful with these. Like, I mean, you work in security, and my guess is computer security. And I know that, I've worked for a corporation before. They would sometimes hire like former FSB guys to like be on their Russian desk. And so like all this stuff is very intermixed,
Well, that's
right?
the thing about private security is it falls by different rules. For example, if you see those guys, remember those guys who drove their motorcycles into Area 51 and the white truck shows up and they're like, show us your hands, and they pull the guns on them. Those
Hmm.
officers in Area 51 had no American flags, no names, no Army, Navy, nothing on there, which leads me to believe they were probably private contractors who were, they weren't even, military. They were private contractors, operating, which makes sense because it's easier to hire some people, source it out. If you're just going to sit in a truck all day and watch the borders of, Area 51, you know. So yeah, I think with the bots and the information and what's going on, even Lou Elizondo says that there's people just watching his every move, waiting for him to screw
Hmm.
up. I mean, who has time to do that? I have employees. I don't have time to watch everything they're doing. So what is really like if they have the resources to do what they're doing and then also be, online, and then how Grush says there's a sophisticated misinformation campaign, I mean, how deep does this really get? How far reaching does it really get? And then with the misinformation and how they control media and how they influence media, what are things that they're doing that aren't even true that we're paying attention to? It's like everyone's focused on like, oh, I shouldn't talk about politics, so I won't say, but with current events, people focus on quotes like, oh, that this candidate said this thing, and then they focus on that, which is actually a big distraction from what is really happening. And then you get the sound bites over and over of like, what did he say about cats? And so everyone is like distracted. And it's like, hey, there's a lot going on. Why are we talking about cats? So I think they're very smart. They're.
Well, it's also what they choose to focus on too. Like, again, I don't really watch mainstream media much anymore because it's like an exercise in propaganda. But I don't think I've seen a lot about Ukraine recently, which what tells me is that means like they're losing. Like that's what that tells me. It's almost you can learn more about what they don't cover than what they do cover,
Mhm.
right? So I
It's
don't
just
know.
like in Washington. I worked security during the riots. Nothing was in the news. Nobody even knew. One
Really?
of our security teams, literally in one of the malls we were doing, had to hide on the roof while they were looting the mall. Never reported. Some of our managers literally had photos of cars on fire on their desks, as like memories of the riots in the that area of time, and nobody ever knew about it. Nobody like
Well,
even
I
if it
do
was
remember
happening.
like I do remember Capitol Hill and like
Mhm.
what's it called? With Chaz? Is that
Yeah, it
right?
was like Chaz and then Chop, you know.
Yeah,
And then
like
even recently in the debates, one of them brought that up, and then the Seattle Times literally posted, he lied about that happening. And I'm like, it did happen. Two people were murdered during that time. Like one was a 16-year-old. And so there's definitely they don't report on stuff in the liberal news. They really don't. And it's I'm not that big into politics, but
and I would
you
even
know,
take out the liberal. I would replace liberal with mainstream because even Fox News, th-
hmm
I mean they'll focus on a different spectrum of the news, but even that spectrum will leave out like the best way to find out what's really going on is if you watch what they report and watch what the the left leaning news reports, which is most of the news, frankly. But if there's no overlap, but there's something big that's going on, that means that's where your attention should probably be focused, right? So yeah, I don't. I mean, and then there's other things. There's simple implications of like you watch what Israel did to Hezbollah, and it's just like but like it looks brilliant, but then if you step back and kind of extrapolate, it was really stupid. Like they just put the death knell on their
hmm
entire electronics industry, right? Would you
mm
buy anything from Israel right now? that's associated with
Hmm.
electronics, I wouldn't touch it.
Hmm.
Wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
And not only that, like this isn't Al Qaeda. Like Hezbollah is the real deal, right? They just put a target on every Jewish person in the world who won't be able to defend themselves like the Israelis will, and like Hezbollah has global reach. So, like, yeah, it made them look like, oh, those Mossad guys are really crafty, but then you have to step back and it's like whoever's setting your strategy, like you just put like millions of people at risk for what, right? So, and then I think they're going to try to drag us in, but like,
Oh,
after the government spent
they
the
might.
last 5 years telling every veteran that they're a domestic terrorist, good luck. Good luck getting their kids.
I mean, I think they've already dragged us in. We just haven't officially, we haven't officially entered, but it's almost like they've already pointed and we haven't like entered the contest yet. But I feel like it's only a matter of time, a couple bad events, I mean,
Somebody doesn't disagree. Somebody disagrees. Francis, politely, I'm genuinely interested in your perspective as what you disagree with, and I will post it. But again, let's be respectful here.
sure. I think our opinions, like when we say them, we can like back it up with like solid, like critical thinking and
Yeah,
go, you know.
look, what I posted was it's just I just know that like when the United States does stuff like that, i.e., Stuxnet, which was probably a joint Israeli operation, we don't
Yeah.
sabotage our own equipment. We sabotage somebody else's equipment, right? It was
Mhm.
Siemens SCADA systems, right? It was a German company, but we wouldn't do that to like a GE engine or something, something like that.
Yeah, could you
So
imagine if like Apple participated in some kind of thing? Like, would anyone ever want an iPhone ever again? I mean, Stephen King wrote a book in 2004 called Cell, and it was about cell phones being used as a, you know, I don't know, a zero
yeah,
day event or whatever you call it,
right.
you know?
I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure the government has backdoors that allow it to do something like that. But um, anyway, you mentioned Troy that you thought I may have been on the naughty list. What makes you think
Yes.
that?
I because I've seen your channel grow painfully slow. It's for some reason it's not getting the leaps and bounds that I've seen other channels. I mean, and I won't give examples because those people deserve the respect, but there's some channels that aren't that good. I mean, I give them 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, you know, and they have 100,000 subscribers, or 300,000. I mean, there's influencers who do mukbangs that have 500,000 subscribers, and they're
Well,
not even
it
that.
could also be that they started earlier than me and they, publish more episodes, right?
Hmm.
Like if I see somebody who started 5 years ago and has 100,000 subscribers, good for them. Like
Hmm.
that's great. But if they started, a year after me and have fewer episodes and lower perceived quality, I'm like,
It's almost like
but
your channel's like a restaurant that's really good, and you're always like, "Hey, you gotta come eat here. It's awesome." And then, but for whatever reason, it's just like 5 o'clock dinner rush. It's not what it should be, and I don't understand why. That's why one thing I've learned in life is we've all when you encounter a situation you don't fully understand.
mhm.
I've learned that there's an X factor I'm unaware of, and right now there's an X factor that is the reason why, and I'm guessing there's something going on behind the scenes, and it could be as easy as like someone clicked a button and you're now you're not getting shared as much, or there's other channels I like, and then I am like, why am I not getting notifications for these other channels that I like? And then I have to kind of like unsubscribe and resubscribe to see if that helps. So yeah, I think at some point, and if it isn't, then what is the reason? Because ufology is a hot topic. Everyone wants more. I mean, people are just giving away, like, hey, follow me, I'll follow you back. It's just everyone's channels are popping. So the only thing I can think of is at some point someone did something and it just puts your channel And I don't understand it really.
Yeah, I'm not looking for excuses, right? And so it could be several things, right? It could also be as simple as because I had a much wider because I was doing like writing and then I even had like 2 or 3 finance and analytics episodes, which were abysmal failures, so I stopped doing them. Um, and then what else did I have? I also did some like a little bit more geopolitics than
Hmm.
I do now. So one hypothesis is simply that it just confused the algorithm, and that's one potential thing. Another potential thing is, yeah, actually, Jeff Lewis literally read my mind. So without getting too much into it, I have a certain pedigree, and people with my pedigree don't often talk about the things that I talk about
Hmm.
and don't have the same knowledge and experiences I do on some of these topics. Like I am a neophyte when it comes to the UFO stuff in terms of as an experiencer. I'm not what you would call an experiencer. Okay. But on the defense side, I've been associated with people who have, you know, become secretaries, you know. So I having someone with that sort of pedigree saying some of the things I'm saying may be a little bit or perceived as a little bit too dangerous in the sense. Like whereas Jeff Mira can say whatever he wants and people are going to be, you could still say I'm a quack, but it's a little bit harder to say I'm a quack. If that, I don't know if that makes sense.
Hmm.
People can just look
Yeah.
up my background and they can figure that out. I'm not gonna talk about it, but
Yeah, there's just so much. I mean, you have such fantastic guests, and they're very famous. I mean, Gary Nolan, Preston Dennett, Morehouse, Brandenburg, is just everyone. It's just so many, you know. So I'm just, it's just really, So yeah, that's why I'm like comparing it to a restaurant. I'm like, all right, let's see what's on the special today. Pretty
well,
great.
there's another thing too, and this is more snobby, but I also don't. Um, I try to. I don't always achieve it, but I try to keep the level of discussion at a slightly more intellectual level than some of these other channels,
Hmm.
and that may be, that may like if you look at a normal distribution of IQ, it falls off really rapidly on the upper end. It could be as simple as that too. It could be that people are able to at a company like Google might be able to intuit where I stand on certain topics politically, which I don't talk about on this channel because I want to be inclusive in the truest sense of the word, right? I want to have ideological diversity. Like I actually care deeply about ideological diversity, whereas our society, they're all for all sorts of diversity except for ideological diversity. But I want to hear what people's arguments are, and I will evaluate your argument based on the argument, not on where the argument's coming from, right? So I was about to comment on like a particular politician, but then I realized I was going to give a politician that I disagreed with a compliment, but then I'm like, I'm not going to go there because obvious reasons. Um, huh. It's interesting, Julia. All right, I think. Oh wow. All right, I'm just getting getting weird texts with information that I dare not discuss here. All right, Troy, you can stay on as long as you want. Nobody's sending me any like literally. No
Okay.
one is like the emails below.
Yeah, yeah. I got a
So
few minutes.
yeah, you can keep
But
asking questions as long as you want, or like you are driving the discussion, man. And by the way, thank you for. I mean, not that you wouldn't, but thank you for behaving yourself and
No, sure. Yeah, yeah.
being the perfect gentleman on this.
Yeah, no worries.
This experiment's going very well, I would say. So
Yeah, no, yeah. And honestly, this is great. This is a great end to my horrible week. I had a very stressful week. My kid in school had some issues. Yesterday, and this is a true story. Um, some people were throwing a football around, and there's some Ferraris and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I got to deal with these guys. So I go over and I'm like watching them to see what happens. And eventually, someone drops the football and it hits the building. And I'm like, I got to talk to him now. So I'm like, hey guys, no more throwing the football or I'm calling the cops. And they're like, oh, are you serious? And I walk away. And then one of them comes over and he's like, hey, don't you know who those guys are? I don't know if I should say their names, but it was 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And as you can see, don't have very good eyesight. So I basically scolded 2 very famous Hall of Fame quarterbacks from the 80s. I don't want to say their names, but one of them played for Miami.
I do. If I had to guess, it would be Joe Montana and Dan Marino. But
oh my God, what a good guess! Hold on one second. I just have to. But yeah, what a good guess! Wow.
It was either I'm either good analytically or
wow, that's crazy. So it ruined my night. I was like, oh man.
I have more respect for you now. Like I don't give a crap if you're Jesus Christ. Like if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, I'm gonna treat you like you need to be treated just like everybody else. I'm proud of you for that, Troy. You should be proud of yourself. Like that. That takes some, cojones. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very, yeah. And that's the thing. That's one thing I like about security. You do get into these interesting situations. For example, one time I was part of the security for when the president of China's wife visited Seattle. I got to see what that was like, telling a doctor, hey, you can't go down this hallway. But I own the hallway. It's my lab. And I'm like, well, you can go by me, but the Secret Service might stop you. So it's been kind of cool. Security's pretty cool to get plus you get to see, you actually learn a lot about how life works in security. You get to see, people give you the keys to everything. They give you all the information. So you get to see exactly how everything works behind the scenes. It's kind of,
So as a security expert, am I ever going to get off this list, this blacklist?
Ooh,
if I am on this blacklist,
I'm kind of bummed out about it. Actually, I don't know what you got to do. Only ideas I would have is maybe just try to continue bringing on, very well-known people. Try to connect your spider web to their web. And eventually, it might sort of glitch out and then start including you on things. Because if you had Lou Elizondo as a guest, you would think you would get 100,000 views. And so I think getting someone
I bet you if I had him on as a guest, I'd have it would be a 5,000 view episode.
It's so crazy. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, this is
even my Gary Nolan episode, it was it's at 7,600, something like that.
Really? Oh man. Mm-hmm. And that was a really cool conversation. Gary went into some stuff, gosh, so it's so crazy with what's going on, and that's, as with the whole UFO thing and UAP thing, it's just the biggest spectrum ranging from, like Lou says, nuts and bolts, all the way to orbs and phantasms and skinwalker stuff, and it's just bizarre. It's just crazy. And then with that, did you hear about here's one thing I heard about recently. Did you hear about that slideshow? I think it's been passed around on Reddit called Slide 9 or something. It was a slide.
Oh, that's the one with the psychotronics, or is that the one with the 6 effects?
It's like an ATIP sort of DoD concern list. These are their capabilities, and and then at the very end, it's and we got nothing to respond to these capabilities. That was very interesting to see. Hey, they can interrupt our consciousness. They can defeat solid matter. and so yeah, this UFO thing is, and then have you heard about these rumors with the James Webb Telescope?
Yeah, there's
A little
something
bit.
coming, an object, it's course correcting, it's 10 light years away. That
Yeah,
thing, potentially
yeah,
planet sized.
yeah. So maybe
Yeah.
it's just rumors, and it's just someone said something and it's not true. But
It,
then
it could
again,
be it could be like a network mapping exercise, right? Where you just create something and see how the virus spreads.
mm-hmm,
Um, I'm not saying it is, but it could be one of those. Which meme is the one that is the most effective mimetic virus? You
mm-hmm.
know, so I don't know. I mean, if they haven't told us, that's a crime. Like if something's coming that they haven't prepared us for, yeah. I
Well,
was about to say something that
we
would have
all
gotten
know,
me
we've all
banned, but
heard the reports about how Pearl Harbor happened. Like supposedly we knew it was going to happen. Supposedly we moved the ships out of the bay the night before. There's like, so it could be a thing where, you know, they just don't want to, they have their own plan and they have no desire to inform anyone. Um, and it really could be as simple as like old fashioned human arrogance, kind of like,
mhm.
who cares what people think? They're just the populace, they're just normal people. They're not involved, so we don't owe them a thing.
Yeah, that's what frustrates me the most because I was in the army. I interacted with people in military intelligence. I was assessed as a military intelligence officer, but they shunted me to armor for 4 years, and then I was supposed to go back, but I never
hmm
did because I got out. But like, they're not that smart. Like, they're not. It's not for them to assert that they need to be the secret keepers here. We're the only ones who we would trust. It is completely preposterous. It's insulting,
hmm
actually. Right.
Yeah, and
So
like I was talking earlier about security getting an inside look on things. Like I've been involved in some high level meetings with vice presidents, with and then you find out like this vice president is making like 300,000 a year, and then you're like, well, when you see how things, like I worked for this charity once, and when you actually see where the donations and the federal grants go to, it doesn't just go to curing cancer. It goes to the sky bridge they're going to build. It goes to that director of shared resources bonus. It goes to this employee who's worked there for 10 years and they've earned a sabbatical. It goes to the janitorial
overhead.
candidate, and so yeah, and then what's interesting, I actually worked for this cancer place that had like a ticking talk, like we're going to cure cancer by 2024. And then when the pandemic hit, like that disappeared and they were no longer a cancer institute, they were a coronavirus institute. And suddenly they're
Well, say the C
cure.
word. No C word. No C
Oh, I'm
word.
sorry.
It's okay. You
But
didn't say
yeah,
anything controversial.
they it's it's interesting how when you see behind the scenes how they don't care about, and and everyone's a great liar. One thing I was naive on when I first started in business is like telling the truth. You think transparency is important and you want to be honest with people. But then I would see my bosses lie very well, you start realizing like, oh, this is how it works. You don't tell people what's happening. You tell them what they want to hear. And once you realize that, because there's a lot of money involved, a lot of money. Um, and then when you see like how the inside of like the Amazon buildings work, like there's this one building they literally spent tens of millions of dollars to build, and it's empty. It's literally, and then they got to pay people to like watch an empty building, you know, and yeah, so
Well,
it's like,
that's why they're trying to force people to come back to the office, right? Because they have
mhm,
all this, this massive building that they like. Apple did that too. I have a friend who's an employee at Apple, and he moved his entire family somewhere else, and they're demanding that people come back, and it's like, it's less efficient. Like we have a software program, you can do that from anywhere. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where's the fire?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going on with that.
And then also there's the behind the scenes with YouTube, Google, right? I mean, I probably shouldn't even talk about that too much because of the naughty list stuff, but the fact that like we're censoring our conversation voluntarily because we believe
Mm-hmm.
there could be a financial consequence to this whole enterprise, and so it's upsetting, because meanwhile these sort of almost like and have you ever seen Loki, that show Loki? There's
I mean, I know I haven't watched the show, but I know the
there are these
character in
time
the
streams in
Marvel.
Loki, and then they like snip off these little tangents. All these like we're literally editing our own time stream, and these tangents could go in really interesting directions that we could never explore. And then our brains never develop those like neural pathways with that new information, and we never create new memories of talking about it, and then they win, and no one ever listens to it, and then the conversations they allow to happen, those are the ones, that we start talking about cats. I won't get into that, but you know what I'm talking about with like the recent stuff with cats, and it's like, okay, we're all officially distracted. We've,
Yeah, well, I think the nature of reality is such that the conversations that we're having in meat space are not the only conversations we're having. And I think when there are secrets that are kept, or when there's uh, efforts to censor speech, it boils over. And like all they're doing is they're converting constructive criticism and constructive debate in the long run into violence. Like
mm-hmm,
that's and by the way, I'm not urging that. I'm not like
mm-hmm,
remain peaceful, don't do but it boils over. And it also allows bad ideas to fester and metastasize. So there may be ideas that are so horrific that if they were aired in a public forum like this, someone would easily defeat them and shoot them down. Now, what happens is people don't talk about that stuff, and then they kind of offline talk about it amongst themselves, and it metastasizes. And like suddenly, some movement emerges, and you're like, "What the? Where did that come from?" Well, Google. It's because you suppressed it and allowed it to fester without the benefit of sunlight. Also, it makes it more difficult for the uh, police services to monitor and track these conversations, right? So it makes their job harder. So it's just counterintuitively,
mm-hmm.
or these corporations are behaving counterintuitively. It's just making it much more difficult to, well, you're not achieving the objective that you think you're achieving, right? You're just suppressing it and making it even harder for the powers that be to kind of say anything or to get the populace to believe anything. Because right now, like nobody believes what the press says,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, have you ever tried to do a Google search for, like when I try to do a Google search for a guest now, right? Because I want to get their bio, like if their website isn't named after themselves, it doesn't show up in the search anymore.
Oh wow.
Right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
I I have to go somewhere else to find it, or I'll just stumble on it in the email that they send me. But like the person's own website does not show up in a Google search. Right? Like they
And which
solved this problem 2 decades ago, and now it doesn't work anymore. So, all right, I'm just going through some of these. I think I let's see. I'm repeating stuff. Hyper rationalism. I will have to check out that clip. State corporate COINTELPRO times 5. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Francis. Okay. So, yeah. Just keep going. Yeah. Searches are whack. That is indeed. Hypernormalization by Adam Curtis. We'll have to check that out. Yep. Okay. Gone are the days where the www is a free market of info. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just so you have to go to DuckDuckGo. You even have to be careful of what you ask, artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, you know?
Oh yeah, I've asked
So,
ChatGTP things, and then it will not answer me and say, oh, that's related to this, and I'm like, really? So, oh yeah,
yeah.
and then you got to ask it in a different way, and you know, but yeah, it's kind
Have
of
you seen that
interesting.
thumbnail? That thumbnail I have of like the frogs coming out of that guy's mouth, the black frogs?
Yes.
You have no idea the the symphony I had to conduct to make that happen because Chat GPT will not you cannot get a human being to have stuff coming out of their mouth like that. It is
That was
foreboding.
actually a really good guess too. That whole
Yeah.
thing was amazing.
Yeah,
And there's
Jerry
something to
Marzinski.
that. There's
Or
something
yeah.
to that.
Yeah, there's
Um,
definitely something to it. But I had to convince ChatGPT to do a flesh-colored statue in order to be able to do that. That is the picture of a flesh-colored statue. So yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Oh boy. I think I have to read this. This is well written. Future forecasters looked at Klaus Schwab. They drew him. He looked like he was at a cosplay convention. Looked just like the Zeno of Scientology fame. It was so bizarre. Zeno indeed. Let's see. Yeah, ChatGPT can be magical at times, and then at other times it can be completely.
and AI, like their AI has a kind of thing to play too in this UFO because based on just what we're hearing about how these crafts are used with, there's a mental interface and they can move so quickly. I mean, it goes in,
Yeah,
for example, how does a machine hover over an alien like our nuclear weapons? How does it do that and then hack into our weapons? They have to have some advanced AI. And so our own AI development is also this kind of interesting thing. Will that play a role to play with our relationship with the phenomenon? And is the phenomenon interested in our AI or afraid of it? Or, I mean, what is going on with the potential there?
well, if you read that book that Luella, not book, but novella that Lou Elizondo talks about, Chains of the Sea, that's actually the theme. The theme
Oh,
is that these aliens come, they won't interact with humanity, they won't communicate with them. So AI does. And only then do the aliens say, "Oh, you are worthy. We will talk to you." And then apparently there are other crypto terrestrials and stuff like that on Earth that we just don't see, but this kid sees, and they're fine too. But I think basically the end that the aliens decide to exterminate humanity because they're not on the level, right? But AI is totally fine. So yeah, it could be a little bit of that, and I think Lou Elizondo kind of indicated that that was one of the books that he was or novellas that he was asked to do that.
yeah. Speaking of eradication, Jon Stewart's kind of freaking everybody out with, you know, the end is coming, get ready kind of tweets. Very scary stuff what he's putting out. The whole idea that I think his wording was they're managing our extinction, or he quoted somebody saying that,
Mm-hmm.
which, this is kind of a weird thing. I've always thought, based on the cattle mutilations and things, like they're kind of running the whole spectrum on how they can deal with us. So I think it's one of those where they're not going to start a fight until they know they can win the fight, and they want to understand us 100%. But then they're so advanced. Really, would they even bother? Um,
Yeah,
you know,
so the more I do this, so I think somebody who's really close is Stephen Mira because they keep like he started on the paranormal side and basically migrated to the UFO side because there were so many similarities in the phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
And as he got closer, intelligence folks started to approach him and we're like, we're asking him questions like, is Kit Green talking to you guys? Is this and that? So, and they get really nervous when they're about to put out new research. So, as far as I can see it, whatever this stuff is, it's here. It's been here for a very long time. It can manifest in our physical reality, but it also has a metaphysical aspect to it, which is why these things can fly and shift into mountains, right? They can fly into the
Mm-hmm.
water without, like, they're just like phase shifting in some way. So my guess is that they live underground and in our oceans, and kind of maybe we're like their flock that's on the planet, right? That's crawling on the surface. I don't know, but these things have been here for a very long time,
And it
in
could
my
be a thing
opinion.
where, like, if they have an AI sort of central command that is like controlling their whole hive mind, because that's one thing, right? If they're so advanced, you kind of can't have a free society that has access to all these really powerful things. So it makes sense that they would be more of a hive colony that's controlled by something centrally, because you couldn't afford to have one or two like suddenly go rogue and then they're a problem. So there's definitely like this weird, like almost like AI hive control mechanism to keep them all doing the same thing. But I'm
Yeah, they're
thinking
like
if that,
biological robots, basically, like
yeah,
biological androids.
and that
Yeah.
might be like why they view us as not really a threat, not because we aren't, because we're less advanced, but also just emotionally, we might be kind of like we've all seen those videos where like someone's talking, they're being interviewed, and there's flies all around them, but they're ignoring them. It's almost like, are we just kind of like flies? And they're like, they kind of just brush us off and acknowledge us, but they actually don't care. Because we kind of seem to anthropomorphize, or whatever the word is, where we
Anthropomorphize, yeah.
we project that they care about us, we're important somehow to them, but we might actually be like flies to them, where we're not a threat, we're not anything. Occasionally we annoy them, but that's it. And if they can do all these things, and like I don't know if you've seen that interview with that guy who said he was kind of like a Bob Lazar situation. He did a '90s interview where he said he would be sent in to talk to this entity, and God, what was his name? Um,
Oh, this is the J Rod guy. You talked to
yes,
J
yeah,
Rod. He's
yeah.
not J Rod, but J Rod was the
And the guy said
being.
that this creature could project like 3D hyper realistic things into his own head. And if you're capable of that type of mental powers, um, like, it would almost be, we've all talked to people who are dumber than us, and we kind of just like go through the conversation, and sometimes, if they're dumber because of an issue, we might actually show them a lot of respect out of, like, oh, you have an issue. So that we're nice to them. But imagine being like a captive alien with all this ability and knowledge, and you've been alive for 600 years, and you literally have idiots coming in with these like plastic bubbles and poking you, and you're dying because this isn't your home planet, and you're getting sick. And it would just be like, and meanwhile, I mean, think of that. It's just, so yeah, I kind of think they have an AI collective that, because how else, like I don't think freedom exists the more advanced you get too. That's kind of one of my theories. The more advanced a society gets, how can you actually let um, how can you let people be free? They could turn against you, you
Well, it
know.
depends. Like if they're highly enlightened, right?
Hmm.
They can kind of be off on their own and things like that. But
And that's a good point, right? If they're in like some kind of realm that's not doesn't have the physical consequences of, then yeah, you could definitely have a society of beings that are more enlightened, and for sure, yeah, I think you're right on
Because
that.
one refrain in many encounters is you all don't realize who you really are, in kind of it's delivered in a way that seems again, I've never experienced it, so how would I know? But in a way that has kind of a mix of like either awe or like you're on an equal footing, you just don't realize it. Or it could be you're on a greater footing and you just don't
Hmm.
realize it, right? So one way that could be is that we're like lower level manifestations of a higher life form. Like you could call it a higher self, higher consciousness. It sounds woo. I could be completely wrong, but maybe maybe we may be more limited than what they are, but they just might be creatures within the machine, but they don't have that higher consciousness, and that might be why they're so interested in us. Is that they see us as much powerful beings that have deliberately limited ourselves to learn lessons or what have you. And that's the point of fascination, but also maybe frustration, right? Like, why would these ultimately, like, massively powerful beings limit themselves in this way? And the answer is to learn, I would guess, right? Or to experience, because if time is simultaneous and you know everything that's going to happen, right? And this is something that Grant Cameron has said pretty often. You would get bored really fast, right? So
Hmm.
in these bodies, it's much more stressful, but there's novelty, right? There's what's going to happen next. Like, is this channel ever going to get to 100,000 subscribers? Why not? Why is it only at 10,000? What's the mystery, right? It keeps you constantly engaged into what's happening with reality. And again, as other people have already talked about, we could just be in a simulation. I shudder to think it's a computer simulation. I think that would be really depressing, but it could be a higher form of a simulation, right?
Hmm.
Like a hyper realistic simulation, and we come out, or it's all of the above. It's I don't know. We're holographic projections of a higher dimensional life form in some way. So I think, all right, I just missed a bunch of different. Um, okay, so they say the family had crazy town paranormal situations since that event. They're Catholic, called an exorcist. The situation totally, they're scared. That'd be interesting to find out. Our realm was a corrupted ancient file, an error on a loop of sorts. The cycle of resets, collecting data is the objective. That is all. We are largely isolated. That's really depressing. I don't like that one. Could be right though. Like, there's no way I can prove that wrong. The law of one talks about densities, the positive path and the negative path. Got to keep us all distracted and depressed, so we have no chance of discovering what we become. Yeah, possible. Within any construct, there will always be an uprising that can ascend against the control system to the degree within which the boundaries of the larger simulation, as it were, allows. Let's see.
And
This,
everyone's experience with the phenomenon is different, right? I mean, your stories about these hawks and eagles and owls is it's unique. I mean, I live in Washington. I see stuff all the time, but I've never seen that from Minnesota, and I've never seen that ever. That's bizarre.
really?
And you know, um,
Yeah, I had a hummingbird fly up to my window yesterday, and it's like hovering, looking at me, and then just flew away. But I see hummingbirds every day. Um,
yeah, it's like I literally like never have those experiences.
hmm.
So you know, and yeah, and then if you look at and then Jack the Cosmic Road, he has his own unique experiences that are different. And then you have like Preston Dennett, he has some really interesting stuff. And then
By the
you
way,
know,
the episode tomorrow, I think it airs tomorrow. He goes into like he had a fully conscious experience that I think he's talked to, but he goes into some depth. Like that's what the whole episode is. So
Cool.
definitely tune into that one because he goes there. Like we talk about like that's the entire episode. It's about his because he never talks about his personal. I mean, he does,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't like to because he's known for. Let's see. Would love to learn about it. I forget what I don't know what she was responding to. Oh wow, yeah. We don't. I've never seen a bald eagle around here, but I have seen them in Lake Tahoe. I've seen one before there. Um, let's see. Interesting. Yeah. Let me see if anybody. Nobody. By the way, you can send me emails and you can appear on here if I recognize you.
And I knew a guy who he did a bunch of drugs once, and he said he was at this party and he did a deal with the devil. And ever since he did this deal, like he's been like untouchable. Nobody can ever. He gets away with everything, and it's just this crazy. I haven't talked to him in years, but people have these weird experiences that they can't explain. I mean, I would say I'm one of those people that
You
hasn't
said he
had.
made a deal with the devil.
That's what he said. He did some acid at a party in Hawaii, and he met someone who said he was the devil at this party, and he made a deal, and he just suddenly like nothing ever went, everything went his way. He like sold his soul at a party, and everything just went his way. You know, he even
Yeah, that's gonna end in tears for sure.
oh
Because
yeah.
all that's going to have to balance at the end,
Oh yeah.
right?
He's
And
like,
look,
yeah, I
we're
don't need my
talking on the
seatbelt
equinox.
today.
Like this is the day of balance. Like it's going to be like everything's up. Like, and then it's going to be the summation of all that in the opposite direction at the very end. Like
Mm-hmm.
not. Yeah, I hope he enjoys his life because.
Yeah, unless he does some like self-sacrifice thing in the end to like
I
get
don't think
back
that.
good.
I think after you do that, you're done. I don't.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
then
that's
there's
bad
also these
news.
crazy things where they have. We were talking about psychotronic weapons, but they're able to inflict emotional distress in humans, and that kind of. I've had two experiences, one with like a hat man and one with like a old hag. And I wouldn't really say I've had paranormal experiences, but to this
Actually,
day,
say more. Like this is the perfect forum, Troy. Like let's hear the story. Like if you're
so
comfortable, if you're
so when
comfortable.
I was
Yeah.
18, I was sleeping in my bedroom, and and I was a cynic, made fun of people like my dad who listened to Art Bell. Like I was like, I was scientific. I was into sports, loved reading books on sports psychology and sports science. And yeah, one night I was laying on my side, and I woke up, and this like like I don't, it's hard to describe, but basically somebody was in my face, like face to face with me, like leaning over in my face, and they were like snarling, and they were so angry. They were just so angry, and I instantly became 10 out of 10 afraid. Like this entity hated me, and I could feel the hate, and it was so scary. And it was like his eyes were kind of smoldering, like orangish, reddish, darkish. It was very
So
weird.
you could see the eyes.
Yeah, it was like because he was right up in my face, like right, and he was just like so mad at me, and I was like immediately. But what happened was I was so afraid. Oh, hold on a second, the lights clicked off. I was afraid. Um,
There are no coincidences,
there we
Troy.
go. I was
No
that was weird.
coincidences.
I was afraid, and I was so afraid that my fight or flight kicked in, and I instantly got angry, and I started saying, the F word, like F you, like I immediately was like, no, and then he disappeared, and then I'm sitting up in my bed, and I'm like, huh, was that a dream? Like, what was that?
I want to stop you right there. So I've never had experiences like that, but I've had experiences of sleep paralysis, and the way that I get out of it is rage. I don't know
Okay,
why, but it gets me out of it every time. So I never see anything because the moment I feel that, I go into rage mode and I'm out. So it's interesting you said that's the first time I've ever heard anybody else
yeah,
say that.
I got like very angry and was like, kind of like it's one of those like your back's in a corner, you got no other choice, so I just Then the other incident, it was 5 years later. I was like 23. I was sleeping in the living room, and I wake up. I used to sleep on my back for many years. I just like sleeping that way. I can't anymore now that I'm older. But anyway, I look over when I wake up, and the second floor window, I'm on the second floor, slides open, and this like old hag banshee crawls through the window. And as soon as she like gets her head in the window, she like does this, like, immediately looks at me, and it's like, ah. And then she does the ah and jumps right at me, and then she grabs me and starts screaming in my face. And that was so terrifying that I didn't actually kick in the anger. I was genuinely terrified, and I just screamed back in fear, like, ah, this is so scary. And then she would jump onto the ceiling and scream at me, and then jump onto the wall and scream at me, and then jump back and scream at me. And I was just, with the old hat guy, I got angry, but with this thing, they won. I was just terrified. And then I woke up, and I was actually afraid. I'm like I play college football. I'm not I work scared. I'm not like, I literally approach drug dealers in Seattle. I'm not afraid of stuff, but I woke up upset and afraid. Or I don't know if I woke up, but I was suddenly alone in the living room. And what happened was I ended up going in my roommate's room, who's like an ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, hey, I had a nightmare. I can't be alone right now. And she's like, yeah, okay. And she thought I was trying to hook up or something, but no, I just cuddled up against the wall without a blanket and just was like in the fetal position, like afraid, like I just can't be alone right now. It was that scary. So yeah, those are my two experiences in my life. That's it.
I'm going to ask you some weird questions. You don't have to answer them, but as a growing up, did you have any like major trauma at all growing up?
Like what kind of trauma? Like I definitely had some. I grew up in an Irish household. With
Okay,
with
so how bad did your dad beat you when you got? Look, I grew up in an Irish
yeah, I
household too.
definitely got. Oh, for sure. Like I remember one time he was beating me, and my friend came over to play, and my friend was watching me get beat through the window, and we actually had to stop, and I had to go tell him like, hey, I can't play. It was like a very embarrassing thing. My friend is watching me, and it was like old school, like take off the belt, hit you with a belt. Like, oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely had that for a few years. So
But just like spanking with a belt, basically. And
spanking with
any
the
like
belt.
fist to the face or anything like that?
Um, not like that, but it was but a lot of
Okay.
emotional abuse. We were always afraid to be yelled at. Like my dad's
Yeah.
my dad's a tough guy. Like he's like, yeah. So yeah,
All
so
right. So
definitely,
no more trauma than I had. Like,
you
okay.
know, I wouldn't say,
Yeah.
but I would
So
almost call it normal, even though that's not normal. It was like,
it's
that was
it's normal.
a.
It's normal for people who grew up in an Irish family. But I think if you tell like upper middle class people these things, they're like, oh my god, you were abused. It's like, no, you just got punished, and it was consistent, and you
Mhm.
know what to expect, so you were in the straight and narrow, right?
Yeah. To be
But
fair, I
like,
was doing some stuff, as a kid for sure, you know.
yeah, what I'm talking about is like, you know, oh, interesting. The old hag in dreams is Irish Scottish.
Oh, hey, Sean, I actually gotta go.
All right.
Unfortunately, I wish I could keep talking for sure. But yeah, this was great, and I'll keep listening. I just can't keep talking live anymore because I got to do some stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
this has
appreciate
been
you,
great.
Troy, and thank you. This is awesome. So we're going to keep going, but hopefully we'll get somebody else send me an email. But thank you, Troy,
Cool,
and
awesome, great
talk
to
soon.
talk, and yeah, all right, bye.
Bye. All right. I think how did Troy do? I thought he was awesome. I actually really enjoyed that. So yeah, maybe. Um, all right. If you want to, if you are kind of been here for a while, I recognize your name. Feel free to send me an email through a glass darkly with Sean at gmail.com. This is open lines tonight, no guests. If you want to come on and chat and dictate where the discussion will go. Um, huh. Yeah, it was really good to meet Troy because he just has like this dash, and I'm like, dash? Oh yeah, I recognize the dash, but I don't. Yeah, I think he was awesome. So to many more. Also, like a really weird. So I want to pull something up because I had this dream. Oh, what's this? Um, no, I use. Oh, that's a great question. I use Streamyard. So if you come on, what would happen is I would send you a Streamyard link, and then you would have to use Chrome to get on. If you use anything else, it might cause problems. But um, one thing I want to ask the audience. So Tuesday was how many days ago? So it wasn't 7. It was about 5 days ago. Okay, and about 8 days before that. Well, so what happened on Tuesday? So on Tuesday we had the Israeli set up Hezbollah and had all these like pager explosions, um, bombings, etc. So yeah. If somebody comes on, they have to use the Chrome browser, right? If I send them the invite link to come on, you have to use the Chrome browser. Um, I think it's Google Chrome, whatever Google's thing is, which I think is Chrome. You might be able to use those like Firefox, maybe, but if you use like Safari, will not work. But one thing I want to share with folks, I want to get your opinion on something because I didn't think this was a hit, but it may have been a hit. So just give me a second. Share screen. Yeah, here we go. It's the right one. All right. So this was 13 days ago. Okay. And let me see if there's a. I'm going to come off of this so you can see it a little bit better. Might. I don't know though. So I'm going to reread this. This is a dream that I had about 8 days before the stuff that happened in Israel. Okay. So, and I want to get your opinion about it. If I could only find it, because now I've like lost it. This is really irritating. I have an enormous number of tabs open, and every single one that I've tried is not the right one. Wow. Okay. Okay, not that one. This is exceptionally irritating. All right. Yeah, I can't find the original at all. I'm starting to get a little angry about it actually. All right. Well, I can't really read it because it's too small on my page. Um, yeah, let's see. I have not written any creepy short stories recently. All right, let me redo this because this is obviously I can't find the original, which is exceptionally irritating. Um, share this tab instead. Okay. All right, so I'm going to read it so that people can see it a little bit better. Maybe that's better. Nope, I zoomed in on it. Doesn't matter. Okay. All right, so this is what I recorded in a dream 13 days ago. Before going to sleep last evening, I listened to Tom Campbell's binaural beat sequence. When I slept, I dreamt of this man who I sensed was some kind of bomber. I would wake up and go back to sleep, but I kept seeing him over and over again. I had the sense that he was using the balloons to hide an explosive device of some kind, though I saw no evidence of such. It was more of a knowing. I also had the sense that he was a Chechen. I didn't see any locations I recognized or any dates where such an event might happen, only that there was intent. I also kept seeing accounting imagery regarding the concept of amortization. My best guess, and it is just that, a guess, is that wherever he acquired the materials to build the device, a simple accounting of inventory by the owners of the source material would quickly identify the shortfall. Probably just a crazy dream, but its persistence throughout the night and its occurrence after listening to the binaural beats suggested that I should document the dream just in case it had any deeper meaning or social relevance. Only time will tell. Okay. What do folks think? I'm going to jump out of this. Yep. Yeah, one of I think my subscribers suggested that it was a precognitive hit on the Israelis rigging the pagers and bombing, because I talked about an owner, I talked about inventory. And that dream I had 8 days before the Israelis actually executed that operation. So, yeah. I don't think it's a hit. I think it's too vague. But, and there's no way to tell. Yeah. I mean, I think Israel's electronics industry is toast after that. But we shall see. Any ideas? Let me see if I actually got any emails also. All right. Nobody wants to come on, huh? You still got time. Oh, ICOM is in Amazon. Huh. Yeah. Crappy upstream. Yeah, fair enough. I don't get that. That's some scary stuff. Yeah, it's hard to tell if that was a. Again, I don't count it. I don't count it as a hit. Like that's it. That's too. It's not specific enough. But it could be. I mean, if the person behind reading this stuff had like in the Mossad or the Israeli armed forces has red hair, I don't know. But it was so persistent, I felt the need to record it. Interesting. All right, it is open line, so anybody else wants to come on? Yeah, that's scary stuff. Because I don't think anybody's in charge in the United States right now. Right? I think they had the first cabinet meeting in 11 months, which is mind-bogglingly insane to begin with. You would think they would do one of those once a week. And apparently Jill Biden took over the meeting, which, like, who's in charge, people? Who's in charge? You know? So it is absolutely terrifying stuff. Okay. No, definitely you can pop on Gray Al. You talk enough here that I'm pretty sure latex mask wearing stand-in. Yeah. All right, I'm just checking my there we go. All right, let's see. Do I have Yep. Boom. All right, Gray Al. On the way. Interesting. Oh, there we go. What? No, that's not. Let me. Okay. Yeah, it is a figurative ship of fools. Yeah, I mean, no, it's pretty believable. It's very technically capable. Jeff Dunham and Biden, they're interesting. What's the significance of that, Robert? All right, Gray Al does have the he's got the StreamYard link. So there we go. There we go. Hold on, let me make sure this is set up properly. Gray Al, how you doing, man?
How's it going, man? Hey,
doing well.
I'm just gonna.
Gray Al, how you doing, man?
Hang on a second.
How's it going, man? Hey, doing well.
I think. Do I?
I'm just gonna. You're on delay.
Okay. Yeah. So, what happens? Just so you know, or where am I here? What happens? Just so you know, is StreamYard opens another window in the browser, right? And then you just have to kill the window you were watching the show on, or you get the double echo.
It's good to see you, man. You've been watching for a while. It's good to see you.
I know.
Virtually,
it's not really fair because we see your handsome face all the time, and then I mean, you have no idea who these lunatics are we're talking to in the chat. You know, I say that with kind words. I say that with kind words.
Yeah, you guys aren't lunatics. So where are you from? I know you told me a million
times. I'm up in the Socialist Republic. I'm just trying to get my star map in the background with the UFO shadow. You see?
Oh, nice. Yeah, I see that.
I make these cool, like, this is like a hood ornament UFO I made for my buddy Rob. You can mount it on the hood of your vehicle, you know.
Like, where in Canada are you?
Yeah, so I'm just outside what's called the NCR, which is the National Capital Region. Like, that's sort of Ottawa is our capital. That's where the Parliament resides.
Yeah, you're in
our socialist
state, right?
Our socialist communist republic up here. But it's
tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Like, what do you really believe on this? So Justin Trudeau, who's his father? Who's his father?
Oh, dude, I don't even follow like Canadian politics. I guess if I would have to classify myself as sort of whatever what's the libertarian style. Like, just leave me the heck alone, and I'll leave everybody else alone. But
yeah, 100%.
Up here, it's like to buy booze, you have to like go to this like federally regulated like store that's got a government building, and then you can only get like a bottle of vodka that just says in black writing vodka. Like, there's no like, well, is it like you don't even get? No, I'm kind of kidding, but it's so overregulated up here that it's pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I'm getting one vote for Castro, but for Trudeau's daddy.
Yeah, no, I'm actually over at my mom's place, and it's not like because I live in the basement or anything, but I'm on this program now where the Owl's Nest where I live, which is a really cool property, 100 acres, got it all zombie fenced and everything. But then I come over here and I spend a couple nights here. But I've like cleared out the workshop, like this standalone building from the old house that she lives in. We're all old school, or my family. We live in like these towns were like founded in 1833. We live in my mom's house, this old schoolhouse, stone schoolhouse. I tell you, like that thing could absorb like the blast of a nuclear bomb. Like these are like old Victorian stone, you know. Like I know you must know about that old architecture or whatever. And then over at the Owl's Nest, it's like an old brick farmhouse, like up on a hill. It's like
a Georgian.
The top floor, like you could snipe off a zombie invasion, you know, like no problem.
Is it like Georgian architecture?
I can't hear you.
It's like red brick.
Oh, yeah. Hang on a second. Oh, my thing just screwed up. Hang on a second.
It's all right. We can still hear you.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay. Could you speak again?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, I got you now. Yeah. Okay, cool. No, that was my fault. Sorry. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So like the architecture, you said it was like red brick. It's like Georgian architecture, right?
Yeah. It's like built around sort of the end of the 1800s. You know, so when they were actually allocating these farm lots, like they were, and it's interesting. I have a book. This like census that was written, composed or published by the government in around like 1927 or something, and it has, you know, it's this whole sort of argument for why, like, you know, but then there was this big initiative to try and populate Canada, like we, you know, because the empire had taken control of it, and so it was all, you know, they're trying to sort of sell the features of it and everything. So that lot that I live on, which I call the Owl's Nest or whatever, it's 100 acre. They were parceling them off like these long rectangles. You know, so I'd say like 2 acres across the short stretch, and then this big long rectangle that goes back. But it's a pretty cool lot. Like it's got a whole like forest area on the back. You know, like a wooded area, like old. You know, full on wooded and everything. And yeah, I got a funny story, like some funny stuff that's happened there too. Like I told this story once on Spaced Out Radio on a viewer call-in where
I've been on Spaced Out Radio before.
Yeah, Spaced Out Radio is pretty cool. But I also noticed that there's a
Dave
new
Scott, right?
Dave Scott, and then there's a new cat. This guy Rob G. Don't know if you've seen him, and I noticed he's just sort of started this other whatever podcast that's like all about viewer call-in. So I think it could be something that's coming back in. Like, and you were just in tune with that too. I don't know if it's in the frequencies or whatever, but I think it's a good idea. Like, you know, again, but you've got to what can I get for? You've got to just, I guess, because when I was on Spaced Out Radio, like I worked my professional life or whatever in a sales office, and my God, the profanity that went on in there. And so that's just the way I talk. I was on Spaced Out Radio. Dave,
you're doing well. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job so far.
He had to bleep it. I was effing this and effing that. I was so into the story. I wasn't even realizing that how profane I was being. But no, I told the story about I was letting a buddy of mine use some of the land for to grow some medicinal herbs that he was running back there, and I don't really do that. I'm on the drink and stuff, but he was like, there was all this strange stuff that started happening back, and it's like back in like right against this sort of rock wall that goes into the woods. It could be kind of creepy at night. He was detecting all this weird stuff, and then we went back and this whole, oh my God, we found that. So he and I were this was at night. We weren't, armed up or anything. And we were creeping through the woods looking for him. We came upon this, like, he coined it as this like a creepy Blair Witch campsite that someone had constructed. Like somebody had built this, like, if we were calling it a coven or but like an actual like
my God.
lean-to, like they'd taken cut down trees and like made this big lean-to and everything. So we were like, what the hell?
They came onto your property and cut
Yeah,
down
this was
trees?
right on my patch. So I'm like, what in God's name? So, but we didn't know whether we were like walking onto an active situation or whatever. So and my buddy, he's stacked, like he throws the weights around and everything, and he was scared, man. He was terrified, and because we didn't know what the hell. And I was on point, and then we're looking around. He looks over in this tree, and then hanging in the tree is a like a modern like pickaxe. It was just like hanging on a branch. So he goes over just like out of a video game, shling, grabs that, and I'm like, he's like, okay, all right. I'm like, hey, you take point, man. We went up. There was no active like operatives or anything there. And then I went about, like, that's why I did all the zombie fence and everything. I bought this. Have you ever seen these Argo vehicles, like a mini tank with tracks and everything? It's like one of those hydro vehicles. So I bought one of those, blazed the perimeter around the whole 100 acres, put up zombie fence and all these signs. I burned that witch site to the ground, like the Chinese to do the wet market, just burn that some bit to the ground. It's the first thing I did. And then, we never had a run in or anything.
Did you
but
bring a
it was
priest on there to like bless that place?
Well,
or
look,
something?
yeah, I was going to do that. I figured burn it to the ground. And then, but there was these weird artifacts. I have some of them. Like whoever this was, like.
You took the artifacts into your house?
Well, one of them I did, and then somebody advised that I burn it, so I threw it in the wood stove too. I still heat that place with a stove that was made in 1896. So it's old school. But no, it could have been like a woodsman living rough or something, but it was creepy as hell. And then up here, like I was looking into. So when I was doing these patrols, I go out and have the chainsaw, baseball bat, stuff like that, or 9 irons, a nice light weapon. But then I wanted like something to be able to take out a tango like from a distance, right? So I started looking at it, but I don't want to kill anybody. So I started looking at like non-lethal weapons. Up here in Canada, if you even like point a like, I don't know, like one of those beanbag guns at somebody, you're going to jail for the rest of your life. So like up here, you're not allowed to arm yourself, except the one loophole that I found was, I don't know why, I don't know how, but for some reason, there's absolutely no limitations on crossbows. So I bought this wicked, like, compound crossbow. It's got the quiver underneath.
You can't fire a beanbag weapon at somebody.
You can't even point a beanbag weapon. You can't even point a beanbag weapon at someone. But crossbow, you're fine. And and you would kill somebody with this, but I designed these, non-lethal rounds. I took like, 6-sided dice.
Yeah.
And then I tapped it out so you could screw that on as the tip of the bolt. And then my buddy realized that you can just, you can buy these non-lethal rounds. They're like for bears or something. Although you just piss a bear off probably, but they're like these rubber plug tips with sort of the nipples and stuff pointing at them.
It just stings you.
Yeah. But the crossbow it's a fine weapon, and oh man, you wouldn't believe like the trajectory that it will fire. But I've never had to even point it at anyone. I just fired a couple of bolts when I got it into the woods, and it went through. We had set up a couple of garbage bags of whatever earth or brush and stuff. The bolt went through like 6 bags into the woods, and then you just hear and all these like leaves are falling, like where it just left the bolt. Like it was pretty nuts.
But this is with the actual.
This was just with a normal bolt. When I first got it, we were just like test firing it or whatever. So it would, and with the non-lethal tip, I mean, it would, if you got hit with that, I'd be like getting hit with like a cement truck like that. You can imagine that it would knock a person out. And then the plan was I would dig a hole, and like the person would wake up in the hole, with no one around, and then they'd be so scared they just, because you would just give them the message like, get that, don't ever come back, right? So that was the plan, but never actually had to do it. But yeah, but then I had a recent. I don't really want to get into it. It's just too odd, too strange. But I had some, whatever you want to call it. I call them X-rays, like aliens. I don't know what these shape-shifted sons of bitches show up at my mom's place recently, like or it was last winter, and that was just nuts, man. Like it was just bananas. Like I don't even know how to describe it.
What are these things? What do they look like?
Well, like, yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. I'm still trying to like. This is the thing. I've been doing this deep analysis on like videos. Like I started looking at the Las Vegas video, and it's bizarre. Like if you actually. I developed these kind of like MacGyver techniques for how to capture what was going on in it. Like I call it lensing. Like I developed a system where I actually took the sight off the crossbow, took the reticule out of it, and then mounted that over the camera of my crappy old phone so that you could zoom right in and like see. And it's amazing, like it's so weird, like the depth in which you can like sort of 3D go into the image and stuff. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, I was a real nuts and bolts kind of researcher. And after I've been looking into this, then now I'm onto the cryptid videos and stuff because I've found what I believe are these. I've developed like a system to analyze these videos, and then you can apply it to any different video. And I feel like in a lot of instances, it could be these are like some sort of trickery afoot, like shapeshifters that present themselves in such a way. The richness of the data is so voluminous that you could sort of interpret whatever you want, and it's shifting so fast. It's like these gaseous clouds almost that form these beings, and so for 1 second it looks like one thing, and
like a plasma.
That's what Rob Heatherly is thinking now, because he's been sort of following my work, if you want to call it such, and he's thinking plasma. But it's unbelievable. But it's almost like I don't know, like it's. So, anyways, the point I was trying to make is I've gone like from nuts and bolts to like basically like full woo-woo. Like I'm flying right over the woo-woo nest, like it's just so I guess you'd call it I've gone full Jack Valet sort of style. Like it's so I don't know, it just seems so complex and it just seems so not to be. No, I'm not saying there aren't, but the stuff I've looked at doesn't appear to be, spacemen in a metal disc arriving from another planet. It looks, unless they're using some sort of mind job or something, like, but then why would the camera catch all this? So it's pretty weird.
I think whatever it is, it's been here for a while.
Yeah, that's what I think for sure too. And it,
or at least one subset of whatever the phenomenon.
Yeah, that's right. Because we have to assume just by the laws of averages or whatever, if we assume that that the universe and our reality is what we think it is, like the vast space, there has to be multiple players, you would think, or other like Earth-like planets with, some sort of life there. So I'm not discounting any of that. It's just like, when you look at this Vegas video, because I was looking at it with some other buddies who were, they weren't willing to wander away from that nuts. Like one of them had it set in his head that it was grays, these grays. And so when he was looking at the data, he would just discount all this stuff that's going on, like crazy stuff. And then he would look to try and find what looked like a gray. Like that's all, so I feel like different people they're looking, or they pull from
they have preconceived notions
right
about what they're looking for.
Yeah. And I think like what it seemed to me, or, this is all just a ongoing sort of thinking process, but it seems like there can be such an offering of complex visual data that's sort of in flux that you can sort of see what you want to see. You can see anything you want to see in it, if you're looking for something. It's like sorry if I'm just rambling on here, but it's like the cryptid people. My God, that's like a vast, untapped gold mine of great videos because they all got trail cams and everything. And oh my God, they've got great stuff. But if they're Bigfoot people, it's always they see a Bigfoot, and if it's like Dogman, they see it. So these guys are it's that kind of idea, right? And but I've been looking at the cryptid stuff, and I'm seeing almost patterns that look similar to that Vegas stuff. Now, I could be just pulling shapes that I've picked out of my head too. So, but I seem to think that this, whatever this is very, very complicated and deep, and it's. I think there's a lot more going on than what we see on the surface. Like it's like, it's so funny. I'll maybe shut up and see if you want.
How often do you see these things?
Well, anytime I look at a legitimate video, like a video that I deem to be legitimate, the other really interesting thing that.
But you mentioned you see them at your. You've seen them at your,
yeah. So I had. Yeah, I had a visit. They showed up, and it was really weird. About like 10 minutes before they showed up, I knew they were coming. It just so happened, and again, this could all be in my head or something, but it just so happened to be when I felt I had made a major breakthrough on my analysis of the videos. Like I'd figured out sort of in my head what I thought was how they were able to sort of maneuver into these shapes and stuff. And then I was like, oh my God, they're on their way here. And then lo and behold, they showed up.
So I think Jalea is asking.
Yeah. The one that showed. Yeah. So look, when I say one, like these could all be just one big something that can operate as independent units. I don't really know, but they, and I guess maybe and I don't really understand, not that I necessarily know how to define what is interdimensional, but these things seem to me like they materialize out of nature almost or something. I don't know. Or they're able to pass through a membrane that's up against the membrane of our reality or some such thing, or they're using some phase cloak if you want to go nuts and bolts on it. But this thing. So I'm at my mom's place and I know these things are coming. Don't ask me how I know. I just know. And maybe I had a little psychic episode or something. Who knows? But my mom was there. She woke up at one point. But anyway, so I didn't think these things were coming. I was at her place. The front door is like this. It's like an old castle door that's like, I don't know, 12, 13 feet high. Oak door. Like you're not getting through that. But then there's this like bank of windows above it. Mm-hmm. That would look down in. Well, who do I see up through those windows, like looking down at me? Was for the best, and take this for what it's worth. The best that I could describe it, it looked like basically a Tyrannosaurus Rex or like a dinosaur head, but I have like these like snakes growing out of its face and stuff. It was really bizarre. It was really very intimidating.
Like an octopus, like pseudopod.
Yeah, but like freaky deaky, like real weird, really weird. But it was a solid thing. It wasn't like an apparition or anything. And then I was expecting like a at that time my hypothesis was that this was some sort of like vampiric, like a vampire thing that was maybe like absorbing people or something and consuming them, because you see all these like weird faces and stuff in the
it's like The Thing. Like The Thing.
Oh yeah, so weird. And anyways, and like it looked, and it really dark and like sort of evil looking and stuff. But so I had planned on, I thought if I had to like face this thing, I was gonna firebomb.
Now, I have to ask this question. when this happened, were you drinking? Were you
No,
smoking anything?
no,
I
but
didn't think so, but I have to ask
no,
you. Right.
no. I mean, I'll take a drink and stuff, but the one thing though that I do tend to do is I will stay up for longer periods of time. So, and I find that it's that your filters dim somewhat of how you perceive reality because or
With
optical
with
information.
sleep deprivation, right? With sleep deprivation.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily it was like sleep deprivation, but it was I was tired. A normal person that's not used to that would have been tired or whatever. But I was alert when this took place. But the way that just going back to the analysis, like I had the shift that I had was that I realized that what was happening in, like, say, that Vegas backyard, it just didn't make sense. You couldn't consolidate it with reality if you accepted like what your brain was perceiving it as. Like when we look around a room or whatever, we are only optically observing enough data of any given object, and that until there's enough data that our brain says, "Oh, I know what that is. That's a laptop, or that's a whatever," and then you can look on to the next thing. So we don't actually, or we don't often in our day-to-day goings around, like actually spend the time to observe, like, what is that I'm looking at, right? And try to remove your perceptual filter and just try to observe the raw data optically. So anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, so I was tired or whatever. I had been up probably like, I don't know, 15 hours or something like that, or no, like maybe 18 hours or something like that. But yeah, but I saw this thing. Anyways, so back to the thing. So I was expecting.
By the way, when did this happen?
This was last winter. It was snow on the ground. It was cold. There was snow and everything.
Like in like January of in like
December or something like that. I could look up the date. I have like
what year though? Was it 2023 or 2024?
2023.
Okay, you know what happened in 2023, right?
Not well. Yes and no.
There were 3 shoot downs. There was a shoot down of the Chinese balloons.
Yeah.
There was a shoot down over Canada, and then there was a shoot down over Dead Horse, Alaska. So I assigned like Daz Smith and a bunch of remote viewers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. Oh no, I saw that episode. That was great.
So I didn't specify where. I just said the last U.S. crash retrieval anywhere in the world, and what they described. I'm not saying it was Dead Horse, Alaska, but they described it like a wintry scene or whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the remote viewers described an entity that was like exactly as you're describing, like a shape. Shifting. At the nano level, could shape whatever it could appear as, whatever it wanted to appear as. So I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's just kind of.
I was fascinated with that episode because it was great the way you did that, because you talked to the observers and then Daz came back, Daz Smith, who's astounding, and he did gave a more detailed analysis of the data from his perspective, having the experience or whatever of doing such a thing. Yeah. Well, and I think remote viewing is amazing. Like, I think that is going to be one of the most valuable tools we have available to us as citizens that want to know what's going on. Like, I think I cut the feds loose long ago. They're not going to. So, like, the feds are trying to figure out what the feds are doing. Like, I think Lou Elizondo and those guys are kind of like a group of, like, let's go, quote unquote, legitimate government body that's trying to get to the old original program that is like gone off grid. Like, they're rogue. They're totally rogue, like a breakaway civilization style, and because if you look at all those interviews, like with Putoff, like Osap and all those guys, they're trying to get to the real pieces of the UFO and stuff. They know.
I think they know a lot more than they can say.
But
Like,
they
they
don't
know.
But do you think they haven't gone into the blue room or whatever though, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't think they know everything, but I think they know about 10 times as much as they let
as
on.
we do.
Their own,
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
I mean, even the stuff like they can't say anything publicly, right?
Yeah.
So they know a lot more because Puthoff is being pulled into discussions at the White House about should we disclose or should we not, right?
Yeah.
So they know a lot. They know a lot more than they let on.
Yeah.
However, I think you're right. They don't know. They don't have the entire picture, and it's really like even Chris Mellon. Like I've talked to Christopher Robinson. Chris Mellon knows all about precognitive dreaming, like all sorts of stuff, but he
Yeah.
doesn't talk about it publicly because it would sound crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But he's
Yeah.
interfaced with Christopher Robinson.
Well, that's where this gets really weird because, like, you know, if I ever tried to, like, I couldn't present the data that I feel I've sort of been able to pull out of these analyses that I've done because it's just too bizarre. Like, you know, we're so the Gen Pop of the prison population or whatever is so far behind the curve now because of the secrecy that I mean, what we have to like baby walk people into like, okay, it is, it's men, spacemen arriving from another planet in a metal disc. That's as far as they're willing to. I mean, you go any further than that, and you're still going to be just considered a lunatic, right? But like, and
there is a shadow biome all around you, and you can't see it. It can interact with you at any time.
It goes so deep. It goes so deep.
I think it's at least that, but I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's from. I don't know if it's from our reality, outside of the reality, if it operates in some light spectrum that we can't see or detect.
Yeah.
No idea.
And we don't know whether that's just one sliver of a greater reality. Like any one, that's what they say, like any one of these X-ray operators that you're running down, that might just be like, like the Lebanese or the Haitians or the whoever,
Yeah.
So it's
like maybe it's some like ancient voodoo ritual from the Haitians that like the U.S. government's terrified of, right? Like I have no idea, right? You just have to be open to. You can't. Set a perceptual frame.
Yeah, you have to leave
way off.
Yeah, right? You've got to leave everything on the table, and like that's what I found when you're analyzing these videos. You can't go in looking for what you want it to be. You got to just analyze the data. Like let the data take you where it goes. Just back to the your point on those crash retrievals. What I find fascinating about that too is, and I could send you a really interesting. Maybe I already did. There was this panel of UFO researchers, kind of who are a little more off the grid, but including like Rick Doty and a couple other guys, and they were talking about the Vegas incident, and they said not only is that real, Doty, and take him for what he's worth, right? Because he's in the feds and everything, but. Right, he gave a pretty good account of all of the three-letter organizations that are all over that case. Like they are interested. Like that was a major event. So it wasn't just some Vegas backyard aliens. It sounds so you could just
have like a green asteroid or comet or something.
Oh yeah, I've analyzed the crash.
But there's no crash. It's like it looks like it's coming down. Yeah, but you don't hear a crash. You don't hear an explosion.
Well, I was running with Rotor there for a while. Scott Rotor, and he kind of, I think he's kind of backed away from it because it got too weird or something for him. But it will engulf you. These rabbit holes will swallow you if you're not careful, And they also sort of take you sort of away from how you would just normally operate in social circles. Like, so you can't talk about this stuff because people will just think you've lost your mind, you know. It's like you're saying, like they can only handle so much. Oh, anyway, so Doty and those guys, they were talking about that, but they also gave a pretty good, they felt that it was, and I've heard this from other places too, like through Rob Heatherly and stuff, that we're pretty sure that that craft, the Vegas thing was brought down by whoever, a terrestrial initiative, you know, so yeah. And I think like the old MJ-12, the program, or whatever you want to call those cats, I think they'd be the guys that have like agreements with some species and alien tech. And I think we probably have some pretty interesting ways to like weaponry by now, right? That can countermeasure some of the alien tech.
Maybe. Who
surely
knows?
Like, because we all got left off, we got dropped off at the side of the road back in like whatever the 50s. And so like all the general population is like, that's where we're picking up from. But like the people that have been still studying this and the government stuff, you think of like technology, how far it's come and everything. I mean, surely there's been some advancements.
But that's if it's technology, right? Like,
yeah, oh yeah, I know.
Physical.
Yeah, I know.
Rube Goldberg machine that just looks like a machine, but it's just a simulacrum. Maybe these things are, let's say they're plasmoids, and they can shapeshift into what look like UFOs. And maybe they were back in 1897. They were shapeshifting into dirigibles.
Totally, man. I'm running that down. Because
I have no idea. I'm just like, I have no idea.
And you see the thing that I kind of don't want this to be though is like, because I have this sort of system of protocols now for my analysis that I can just take any video, plug it into like a setup that I've got, and then analyze it the same way as I've done these other videos. And I mean, I kind of don't want to find out that it's all just one thing, you know, shaped or, you know, presenting itself as all these different things. I want there to be like a Star Wars or whatever universe, you know.
Buck Rogers
like,
universe.
It gets pretty dark when you think about just this one control. If it is like this one control system, I mean, what the hell? Like, so it takes you. Then you get into the space where, well, then probably this is like some sort of simulation or something, right? Like,
yeah, I hate that. But it could
I
be.
know it's a trap.
That's my least favorite. That's my least favorite.
Yeah. Well, however, Sean, the one thing about the simulation theory is it still remains the only theory
that explains everything.
Can actually explain everything that's going on, and the variety and all the weirdness. And because, you know, if you did have some sort of system and then you were sending in like agents, or the control was sending in things to, you know, affect things, like it would come across as all kinds of weird stuff, right? Like, or who knows what it would look like, you know? It's whatever your brain makes it look like. Like that whole Men in Black thing is so weird, man. Like,
yeah,
they are not.
Well, when
like
you first talked about your X-rays, that's what I was thinking. By the way, when you had that incident at your mother's home,
yeah,
what did it do? Like,
so I was not willing to exit the building with that guy, but he left. And like my mom, I guess I'd made enough of a racket or something. But my mom comes in, what the hell's going on? I'm like, get me. I don't know where my phone is. Get your iPhone, dude. And she was like, she starts screaming. She's freaking out. I go, I said, well, just get out of here, because like I wanted to handle it or whatever. And she's like, well, I don't understand what you see. I said, well, then look right there. She's like, no, I won't look. She wouldn't look when this fellow was up there. But he departed, and then I went outside and had this interaction whereby you've probably heard Bigelow tell, or somebody, I think it was Bigelow, tell the story at Skinwalker Ranch where they at one point had set up that someone came up with this great idea to set up like this one of those outdoor like big like chessboards or something, and then they would set it up, and then they'd go away, and when they come back, whatever, something or someone had like made some moves with the pieces, and then so it was like this game interaction that they were having. I had sort of a similar type thing where, because there was a bunch of these of all shapes and sizes. These cats are really weird looking, but they're kind of like there's big like dinosaur looking ones, and then all kinds of shapes and sizes. But they were like all lurking in the shadows, and then all I had on me was a pistol grip LED flashlight that I really love, and so there was no word spoken or anything, and I was talking the whole time. Like I was yammering on just like this. Like that's how I don't know. Ever since I had the dogs, like I would talk to them, and I would just like talk out loud. So I was like talking to them out loud, like sort of hoping that to manage the situation. But I wasn't in an aggressive posture, as aggressive as I could be. But I was not in that posture, and so they didn't seem to reflect that back or anything. But they would send like one of them would start approaching me, and then I would point the flashlight at it and say, "Oh no, I know you're there," and then it would back off, and then because they're really well camoed, and so you could think they can come out of anywhere sort of. And yeah, I know it sounds like I'm crazy or whatever, but this went on, and that was kind of the exchange, and then there was sort of some sort of understanding that was reached, and they left. So,
what do you mean by understanding? Like,
just like, because I think, like, I originally thought I was going to have to kill this thing, and I had designed these really cool. I'm pretty handy, and I designed these lithium fused cherry bombs, like Molotov cocktails, because I thought I'd have to. How would you fight something like that? I'd incinerate it, right? Try to burn it, because I thought it was this big amorphous blob type thing.
Unless it was plasma, in which case it was.
Yeah, right. Well, but what are you going to do? I'm not going to go in swinging with the baseball bat. That at least fire would. I don't know. That was the best I had. Crossbow. I don't know. Wouldn't do shit. So or anything. So, anyways, but then it sort of like I understood that it wasn't really necessarily meaning me any harm. It was just I felt like, and I don't know whether there was some sort of messaging, nonverbal messaging that went on, but it was like, look, like cool off. Like it didn't want me to be on this hell rage after it, and it was sort of saying like, we're not going to fuck with you, or we're not going to do anything with you either. So I left. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Did he give you any sense why it was there? Like his curiosity?
Yeah. I think that again, this is only it never spoke any words, but I felt I knew certain things. So whether they was putting something in my mind, it came because I was getting close to it. Like I was basically chasing it, like pursuing it, figuring out. Like I really figured out a lot about it through this video analysis that I was doing, down to sort of how it almost like 3D prints to materialize or whatever. And this is just my opinion, or how maybe I'm nuts, maybe I'm not. But I think it somehow knew that I was onto it to a degree that it wanted to come and tell me. And I was thinking I was going to have to hunt it down and kill it or something. And I don't know. So it knew somehow that I was, I don't know. I think that it somehow knew that I got a little too close to it. Maybe sort of the same, like how they say at Skinwalker Ranch, it doesn't like to be pursued, like it wants to play by its rules or something, like it doesn't want you getting an upper hand.
Yeah, it wants to hide. It wants to be able to do what it does.
Yeah, and call the shots.
Without attention.
It wants to set the boundaries of the game or whatever. So, but I mean, I actually now, like in reflection since then, I feel like it was actually kind of, when you think about it, it was a pretty interesting and like no violence was offered or exchanged or anything like that. I kind of feel like maybe we're going to have to be protecting these guys against the goddamn feds, like I think the CIA and all those cats are far more, ill-willed than
dangerous. Dangerous to people.
And actively against us than what these cats were doing.
Yeah.
So
look, I probably like these things haven't. I mean, there are instances of something non-human harming with cattle mutilations and human mutilations.
No, definitely that's I don't like that is really disturbing.
Who knows if this is the same thing, right? Like,
right. I have no way of knowing, but I kind of got the impression, like, and again, now this is me thinking about this all the way from then till now, and also like I look when I was analyzing that Vegas stuff, like let's say this was the same cats that were in Vegas, because they look like some of them look like the same ones, but I also like analyzed all the police body cam footage, and then also I analyzed like the there was some footage of that KLRA or whatever George Knapp's TV station is. They had a drone that sort of circled the property from overhead, and I analyzed that, and there's weird stuff going on in those videos, and like the drone video is like, it was like whatever months after the event. So I think that's kind of that hitchhiker or lingering paranormal stuff. When I analyzed like the forklift, and I'm not sure if it was the same forklift or not in the backyard, that was kind of the center point of a lot of the activity in the drone video. There is some weird shape-shifting going on in it. Like it's, you could let people, if people would look at my analysis and say, oh, that's just because it's low res camera or whatever. But if you actually look at what's going on carefully, there's weird.
Yeah, it could also be, again, I don't know. I'm not saying this is what it is. It also could be a technology that bends light in different.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Light that would show distortion too. It doesn't say that's what it is, but it could be a plasmoid, right? I
have no idea other than like, it's just things when there's an anomalous event taking place, things are not what they seem. Like when you analyze the data, it's not what, if you just, because most of the time, another really great trick is, like people are always, when you're looking at one of these videos, like of a UFO, or you're looking for the alien or the Bigfoot or whatever, people are like pinpoint focused on where the whatever it is supposed to be. And there's all this other stuff that's going on all around it. The environment gets all affected. And that's where you tell what's going, whether it's legit. I can tell you in like a heartbeat whether vids are legit or not, anomalous or not, because of these environmental effects that take place. That's not even looking at whatever the center point of, whoever the main target is of the video. So I feel, but again, like who knows? Like, another theory I have is that this thing is so weird and complicated that it's going to be a subjective experience to each individual. We're all going to go through it differently. Maybe this is some like weird spiritual whatever, where you might experience it as gray dudes showing up in a disc or something, or somebody else might, where maybe we all will go through it different, or we'll perceive it differently. Who knows,
Yeah, or I just see birds all the time.
Well, my house. Look, man, those, I'm telling you, because I remember a long time ago, you had taken a picture with some clouds and stuff in it or something, because I don't know, for whatever reason, you just thought you took that picture and you wondered if there was something weird about it. There is weird shit in that. There's weird stuff in that for sure. Like, I don't know. I the more I look into this, the more like you start to realize that really these things could be, we as individuals could not be what we think we are. Like we might not actually look like, because I'm telling you, I don't want to let go. I guess I'm all in here at this point, but another really weird thing about these videos is like, so the environment is affected whenever there's a legit video, as far as I can tell, and anything that's in that environment is affected, including people who start looking really weird. If you slow it right down and go in close on them, they start like mutating into like aliens and shit. It's bizarre, man. and then and I've been down, like I chase these things, I go kind of all in on them. So inevitably that led me to say, well, holy shit, like we're gonna have to turn the camera on myself at some point, right? Which then you start to say like, well, I don't really want to see that. I don't know if I want to see that, So, but it's weird. It's weird, man. It's weird. And again, I think that it's so weird that people can easily just pass it off as they say, oh, that's just camera artifact or something. But I'm telling you, if you actually look at the optical data that's being presented to you, when you slow it right down, zoom way in with lensing, you have to use a magnifying separate from the camera, and then you have to record it in stages. You have to record the recording with that setup, do it a couple of times, and you oh my god, it's just so bizarre. So but it's not scientific or anything like that. So and I'm not trying to sell this idea or anything like that. I'm just
that's
my
the
own
problem.
journey.
It never does the same thing, or rarely does the same thing twice. Like even at Skinwalker, it's always doing something different. It's always one step ahead.
Yeah.
So.
But these environmental effects, especially on like vegetation, you start to see it, and you can almost spot it without doing any like video enhancement on
Does
it.
like the vegetation grow faster or grow slower, or like
it loses its. So if you think of like a leaf, it loses its crispness of the jags, like of the points of the leaf, and it goes into it starts to look almost more like it's like filling up with water, and it gets fat like a cactus, like all the foliage and stuff. It's really weird.
That's like radiation. That's like an effect.
It could be, or it could be, what? Because the strange thing is, if you were witnessing this with your own eyes, that would be one thing, because you could be getting affected by it. But why is the camera recording that? I'm not sure. Right? Yeah, but there definitely is some sort of effect, in my opinion, happening to the larger area of when an anomalous event is captured on video. And what is the perimeter of, like, where is the boundary of that? I have no idea. Like, is it worldwide, or is it
well, yeah, maybe whatever this is. Again, I'm just totally speculating, but maybe the veil is thinning between two separate realities or dimensions, and whatever that reality is kind of fading in and merging with our own. And so you're kind of like, it's like a Venn diagram. It's like overlapping. And
absolutely. That is, I think that's a really, I think that's a very solid. No, I think that's a solid analysis, because, I guess that was where I first started thinking, okay, inner dimensions, because it almost looks like there's a, like when water and oil separate, and there's this interface membrane between those. It almost looks like, maybe when this environment is affected, maybe we're in their dimension at that point, maybe we're getting pulled into their dimension, or whatever. There is a sort of crossover point, or they're using technology to open a door or something. Because what's interesting, who was it? Cosmic Road, Jack Connors. Yeah, he tasked a remote viewer to look at Vegas, and I know Vegas, like I know Vegas inside out, so I keep referring back to that. And then also the Cryptid Huntress, this other remote viewer chick who does like all cryptid stuff, she remote viewed it. And I'm telling you, they both came up with some really interesting things that I had already determined from my analysis, like sort of the shapes of some of these creatures. Like, one really weird feature was there were these X-rays are like these kind of long, dark guys with sort of like centipede or mantis style, like little limbs or extensions coming up, like for hands or something. Then they have like a head, but in their head, like, it's just so bizarre. Sitting in their eye socket, or where the eye socket would be, will be like a little creature holding this like device or something, and one of the remote viewers drew that. Like I hadn't sort of interpreted it to that degree, but it matched exactly what I was seeing in my analysis. Just so you got to think like dimensions or something, because it's just so weird. And like the guy that showed up with the snakes growing out of his face and stuff, like that's just like, what, they're gonna take it to that level? Really? Come on, like you got to go with the snakes going out of the eyes and stuff. Jesus, like it's just too. I mean, I don't know. There would be no reason to appear like that if you were just another biological species. You wouldn't think. Like, it wouldn't even be.
But you might appear as a gray to put people at ease, right? That could be like a.
But I
don't even know if they're related. Maybe they're not related at all. Who knows? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's so. But again, that could have just been how my brain was interpreting the optical data that was presented. It might have just been a gaseous plasma, because the rate at which these things shift is unbelievable. It's like every second to second, it's never the same, it seems. So there's an infinite number of things you could draw out of the data. Your brain could draw and process what it thinks it's seeing. And so I got a fetish for things with snakes growing out of their faces or something. That's what I see. I would never have dreamed of such a thing, but
yeah, maybe it's your mind just interpreting something you can't interpret.
Exactly. That's what I think when I look at how different people have analyzed that Vegas data. The other interesting thing about Vegas, and just feel free to kick me off anytime here. Like all these sort of 2-minute sleuths looked at that video when it was released on the internet, and they all said, "Oh, I found the alien," and they show this at one point in the video what they think they see an alien, and they all look different. But the thing is, let's say that they're all right, like, because the whole thing, the whole bowl of soup, that whole backyard, it was not the backyard. It was like some other dimension or something, because any like solid object, the forklifts, the camper van, anything at some point or another is going to shapeshift into something that it can't be, like a creature or something. Like it's just impossible to reconcile it as matter like we understand it, And then again, you think that there's more empty space in any one of us than there is solid mass, right? So if some alien species or something had the technology to scramble and rearrange that matter,
right,
then they could take a forklift and make it look like something else, like actually physically through a physical process, right? So God only knows. But I'll tell you, it's like you know this. I think you've said it before too. It's like the more you understand, the less you understand. Like it just for every inch deeper you get into it, it's just a vast chasm of just what the hell. Like it just gets more and more complex and uncomprehendable.
All right, Grael, I think we are like 38 minutes over, something like that. So I think
you have to just like edit out the entirety. Just leave the first 5
I'm
minutes.
not editing anything. Like this is live, baby. This is live. Like it's.
Oh yeah, right. Right on.
Yeah, this is what it is. So
that's sweet, man. No, look, I gotta give props too to Troy. Like your podcast, like there's just like there's really not many out there where you can really get into the nitty gritty of this stuff. Like you're willing to you're doing what I say is like just don't have a pre-assumption. Like just go in and hear what people are telling you and interpret it as you will. But like nobody, who knows? Like we got to keep everything on the table, right? Until we can definitely prove that it's not, whether that's even possible. But you're like, and like a lot of the ones that maybe were good at the start are just, it's a weird phenomenon too. I'll just mention really quickly is there seems to be, I don't know if you've observed this, like there's some people there's been a bunch of them, these guys who are like all about like Elizondo and stuff. and then they flip like 180 and they like despise him now or whatever, and they go to such great lengths to bash whoever their target is, that you got to wonder, like, if you're that involved, like, if you don't believe it, just walk away. Like, you don't have to, dedicate your life to destroy, like, trying to destroy somebody.
The same
so
thing
there's
with
a lot of
bunkers. Like, they
there's
care very deeply
influences
about what you believe, and it's like, hey, if you don't believe it, I don't
Yeah.
have any shade. There's no shade
Yeah.
that you don't believe it. It's fine.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's the vibe that you have. I mean, amongst other many good qualities that this podcast and yourself, through your life experience and everything, has, and your open-mindedness to this topic. You can't, you're going to come. Everyone's got a different opinion, and it's up to us to bring on board all that data and try to make sense, try to assemble it in some semblance of meaning, which might only end up being subjective relative to the individual. Who knows,
Yeah, if you're out there and you think you know what this is, you haven't done your homework.
Well, then if you think you know what it is, try talking to somebody else who has a completely different opinion into that. Like, they will hate. You've really got to just. Really, leave it on this, Sean, is what you realize. I think you also said this before, which is why it comes to my mind. This is a study almost of ourselves. Like, but the deeper you go into this, it's almost like we're the humans, or our whatever it is that we are, becomes just as much a subject of study. You can't separate it, right? Like, it's even just how we are going to understand this for what it is. Like, it's so we are a part of this puzzle somehow or another. Where it's not like we're just
prisoners of our own modes of perception.
Definitely, right? Yeah, and it's
like,
it is.
How do you describe a color that you can't see? Right? It's like one of those things.
Yeah, like you and me could think that red, our entire lives, is a different thing than what we think red is. You know what I mean? So, but it's at the end of the day, it's up the old hamster wheel where we're going to figure out the biggest gains. I mean, I love the technology side of it. I love that there might be hard material that we can study. I love that, but it just feels like it gets weird. You can't avoid it. It gets so bizarre, It goes beyond that somehow. So, at least for some of the stuff. So, thank you very much, Sean.
All right, thank you, Gray.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you. I've got some links to send you just for whatever. Check out. Okay, cheers.
All right,
thanks
brother.
for having me on. Good looking out, my man, and we'll see you soon.
All right, brother.
Okay, cheers.
All right,
later.
Talk soon.
Later.
Right. All right, everyone. I went way over tonight, so it's always a pleasure seeing you, and I'm glad I did that. I was kind of a little bit stressed, like, oh, I don't have a guest and all this stuff, but I think that went well, and hopefully YouTube doesn't, let's see. DS, I'm going to read this because this is probably the last one. Commenting to try to de-stranger myself. I love Through a Glass Darkly. I hope you keep doing the open lines. It's a great idea. It gave me Art Bell vibes. Driving down the dark highway, listen to the live feed. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tim Beck. All right. Good night. Godspeed. Happy autumnal equinox to those in the northern hemisphere. Happy vernal equinox to those in the southern hemisphere. So thank you all. Yeah. Great out. Yeah, they're probably gonna scrub us for whatever weird stuff. Anyway, good night, everyone.